London, November 1887. The city lay beneath a shroud of fog, the kind that come to your coat and crept into your lungs. Gas lamps flickered like ghosts along the cobbled streets, and carriage wheels echoed like distant thunder. The scent of coal smoke and wet stone mixed with the tang of iron from the Thames. London, in all its choking glory. Detective Inspector Alistair Finch stood at the edge of Charterhouse Street, his coat buttoned high and his hat pulled low. He wasn't a sentimental man, but something about the night made his chest feel tight. Maybe it was the silence, or maybe it was the handcuffs. Elijah Cross, his partner, his friend, marched through the mist by two constables. Elijah's wrists were bound in steel. The glow of the gaslights illuminated the disbelief in his dark eyes. There was no struggle. That made it worse. Finch stepped forward. There must be some mistake. Chief Inspector Radley's voice was ice. He was caught at the scene. And what scene would that be? Finch's voice was low, edged. Radley looked over his shoulder at the constables. The drawing room of Lord Penderley. Dead. Throat slit. Cross was found with the knife. Finch shook his head. That doesn't sound like Cross. Radley shrugged. Doesn't matter what it sounds like. Facts are facts. But Finch knew better than to trust facts presented too quickly. The morning after the arrest, the city papers were already ablaze. Black constable, murders lord, American detective in British uniform, betrays crown. Finch crumpled the paper and tossed it aside. He hadn't slept. The image of Elijah, hands behind his back, eyes calm but burning, wouldn't leave him. He remembered the first day Elijah had walked into Scotland Yard. Straight-backed, proud, a former Pinkerton from the States, a black man in a white man's world. And he wore it like armor. They'd made jokes, tried to break him, but Cross was unshakable, not because he ignored the hate, but because he studied it. And somehow, through the fog of prejudice, he'd become respected. By most. Now they wanted to burn him. Finch went to the scene. Penderley's townhouse in Belgravia was cordoned off, guarded like a fortress. A constable at the door offered a stiff nod. "Inspector Finch, they said you'd come." "Did they?" He stepped inside. The air was stale, old money and new blood. In the drawing room, the armchair was still stained. No attempt had been made to clean it. Finch crouched, studying the patterns. Too clean, he thought. The cut too precise. Surgical. He opened his notebook. Penderley, known connections with East India Company, had recently spoken out against integration of foreign-born detectives. Owned shares in Thames Shipping. There was no sign of a struggle. Just the blood, and the knife placed carefully on the side table. Too carefully. Finch stood and looked out the window. Fog swallowed the streets, but something moved beyond it. A figure? A trick of the eye? He turned. He needed someone who remembered details. Someone who listened, not just heard. Miss. She worked for the London Voice, one of the few papers that hadn't run Elijah through the mud. A small office near Fleet Street, cramped and smoky, but full of fight. Cora was already standing when Finch walked in. "You're late." "I didn't say I was coming." "Didn't have to. You always show when the city's on fire." He raised a brow. "And how did you know it was burning?" She handed him a photograph. Not of the crime scene. Of Cross, taken 2 days before the arrest. With a woman. Dark hair, veil, clearly hiding her face. "Who is she?" "Don't know, but she's not in the Yard's report. I checked." "Of course you did." Finch pocketed the photo. "Where was this taken?" "Dockside, near Limehouse." "I need that location." "I'm coming with you." Finch hesitated. "You need eyes, Finch, and ears, and someone who doesn't wear a badge." He nodded, once. Limehouse was no place for polite society. Smoke from opium dens curled like fingers through alleyways, and the clink of coins spoke louder than words. But Finch had walked worse streets. The location from the photo was a warehouse long abandoned. Inside, Crates marked with foreign scripts were stacked high. Dust. Silence. Then a whisper, a footstep. Finch drew his revolver. "Who's there?" Nothing. Then a cough. A boy, no older than 10, thin as wire, stepped into view. "You're looking for the dark man." "Elijah Cross?" He nodded. "He came here, met a lady, left a box." "Box?" The boy scurried behind some crates and returned with a small wooden chest. Inside, documents, maps, and a list of names. Finch scanned it. Foreign dignitaries, dockmasters, clerks, and at the top, Lord Penderley. Finch's stomach turned. Elijah hadn't killed him. He was investigating him. And now he was silenced. Back outside, Cora leaned against the brick wall, scribbling notes. Find anything? A war. Hidden in names and ink. Cross was chasing something. Or someone. And now? Finch looked up at the sky. Fog was falling again. Thicker this time. Now, I chase it too. London, November 1887. Fog hung like old linen over the Thames, thickening as the sun crawled behind the rooftops. Alistair Finch walked quickly along the south bank, coat tight around his chest, footsteps muffled by damp stone. He hadn't slept. The photograph Cora had given him refused to leave his thoughts. If Elijah Cross was seen with Jonathan Hale after the supposed time of death, then either the coroner had lied, or someone else had moved Hale's body and rigged the scene. Finch needed answers, and he needed them fast. He turned into a narrow alley behind a row of warehouses. This was where Elijah had last been seen following a lead. The shipping ledger tied to the colonial office. The one Hale may have died trying to hide. A rat skittered past a broken crate. Somewhere nearby, a man coughed hard, the sound echoing like a pistol crack. Finch slowed. There, a sliver of lamplight from behind a rusted door. He knocked. A narrow slot slid open. 2 eyes, pale and suspicious, blinked at him. Password? Finch frowned. I'm not here for drinks. Then you're lost. I'm looking for the clerk of Dock 9. He was here 2 nights ago. Left a record book. I know it didn't go through official hands. Silence. Then the slot slammed shut. Finch reached into his coat and drew out a sovereign. He held it to the light. The door creaked open. Inside, the air smelled of fish mold and sweat. A makeshift bar stood in one corner, but most eyes were fixed on cards, dice, and money changing hands. Finch ignored it. He was guided through a curtain at the back, where a small office waited. Cramped, dusty. An older man sat behind a desk, spectacles crooked on his nose. Name's Broom, he said. Clerk on Dock 9, until the yard started sniffing around. What do you want? You logged a private shipment from the West Indies 2 days before Hale died. No paperwork was filed with customs. Broom shrugged. Not my job to ask questions. Finch leaned forward. What came in? A pause. Then, boxes sealed tight, marked with the crest of the colonial office. But they weren't official. I'd swear it. Inside, books mostly, bound ledgers, but not in English, looked old. One cracked open, there were diagrams, sketches. Of what? People. Finch felt a chill crawl up his spine. What kind of people? Native, bound, diseased. I didn't want to know more. Broom reached beneath the desk and slid a parcel wrapped in cloth. Your detective friend left this. Said if anything happened to him, someone should know. Finch unwrapped it. A journal. Elijah's. Back in his flat, Finch sat beneath the gaslight and read until dawn. Cross had written everything. Names, dates, movements. Hale was only a middleman. The real figures behind the shipments were hidden behind layers of bureaucracy and influence. There was reference to a group called the Magpies, a secret society. Finch flipped the page. Drawings, masks, black feathers, the same masks described by Hale's terrified clerk. They weren't just rich men playing secret games. They were orchestrating something far darker. A knock at the door jolted him upright. Cora, you look like death, she said. Though worse, come in. She carried the morning paper. Front page, Cross to be tried by week's end. Trial closed to public. They're rushing it, she said. Too fast. No defense. No testimony. Finch handed her the journal. She read in silence. Her face paled. If this is real, it is. Then this goes beyond Hale. This is a network. Finch nodded. And Cross was getting too close. Cora looked up. Then we go deeper. That night, they returned to Hale's estate. The yard had moved on, but Finch still had keys. The study was undisturbed. Dust had settled where blood once lay. Cora moved to the bookshelves. Help me. Something's off. Finch followed. One book, A History of Imperial Science, was newer than the rest. Too clean. He pulled it. The shelf clicked. A panel slid open to reveal a safe. Finch stared. Now we're getting somewhere. Inside the safe, papers, ledgers, and a sealed envelope bearing the royal crest. Cora read aloud. To be delivered only in case of exposure. They opened it. Inside, a list of names, MPs, officers, judges, all marked with the symbol of a black feather. At the bottom, a single phrase. Protect the order. Silence the traitor. Finch folded the paper slowly. Elijah Cross hadn't just stumbled into a conspiracy. He had become its target. And now, Finch was next. The rain had returned by morning. Not a downpour, but a steady, ceaseless drizzle that coated every surface and blurred the edges of reality. London seemed to shrink into itself under the gray. Alistair Finch sat in Cora Delling's office, above Fleet Street, the envelope from Hale's safe resting on the desk between them like a loaded pistol. We need more than names, Cora said. We need proof that links them to Hale, to the Magpies, to the murder. Finch nodded. And we only have a few days. Cross's trial is moving faster than I expected. They want it over before anyone can ask questions. Cora lit a lamp. Its glow pushed against the shadows as she pulled open her desk drawer. There might be something. Hale had a younger brother, Samuel, kept his distance from politics, worked in shipping, a quiet life, but he used to send letters to Hale every month, until 3 weeks ago, when they stopped. You think he knew something? I think he disappeared. They found Samuel Hale in Deptford, living under another name. He was pale, reclusive, and watched the street like a man expecting knives. I shouldn't be talking to you, he said, his voice hoarse. My brother made enemies, deep ones. The kind you don't see coming until it's too late. You stopped writing to him, Finch said. Why? Samuel looked away. Because he started asking questions. About the shipments, about the docks, about a society that paid to keep secrets. He reached into a tin box beneath his bed and retrieved a stack of letters. He told me he was going to do the right thing, that if anything happened to him, I should tell someone. Finch took the top letter and read aloud. They wear masks, speak Latin, pay in gold, in order to meet under the guise of science, but what they want is power. Cora looked up. This could break the trial. Not yet, Finch said. We need corroboration. And we need to find someone inside the Magpies who might. Back at the yard, Finch returned to his desk to find it rifled through. Drawers open, papers missing. He didn't report it. He went straight to Radley. I need full access to Hale's financial records. And I want to see Cross. Radley's eyes narrowed. You believe he's innocent. I believe something is very wrong here. And if I'm wrong, you'll have me off the force by sunrise. Radley leaned back. Fine. 5 minutes. The prison was cold. Finch had seen many behind bars, but none like this. Elijah Cross sat on the edge of a cot, back straight, eyes steady. He didn't flinch when Finch entered. You're late, Cross said quietly. Finch almost smiled. You're still a smartass. That's good. Means you haven't given up. Can't afford to. Finch sat opposite him. I know about the Magpies, about Hale, about the ledger. We found your journal. Elijah nodded slowly. Then you know they won't stop. Not with me. Not with you. I need more. Anything you didn't write down. Cross looked up. There was a man, Whitehall, connected. He didn't wear a mask, called himself Mr. Black. Finch frowned. Not much of a disguise. He wasn't hiding. Said I was stirring up mud, that I was digging in graves best left alone. And what did you say? Elijah smirked. I said truth doesn't stay buried forever. Finch stood. That's exactly what I needed. Cora was waiting outside the prison gates, coat drawn tight against the drizzle. Well, we have a name. Mr. Black, connected to Whitehall. Her eyes narrowed. Give me 2 days. I know a man in Parliament who owes me. What will you tell him? The truth. Finch paused. Be careful. Always. That night, Finch returned home to find an envelope slid beneath his door. No name, no seal. Just a single page. Leave it alone, or Cross dies early. Finch stared at the paper. The fog outside the window thickened, but his resolve burned clearer than ever. The Thames was angry that night. Wind lashed across its surface, sending ripples of black water crashing against the stone banks. Alistair Finch stood beneath a cracked archway at the edge of Limehouse docks, coat soaked through, collar turned against the wind. Somewhere in the murk, chains clanged against metal. He hated this place. It reeked of forgotten things. Cora's message had arrived an hour earlier, hastily scribbled. Dockmaster Renly, find the shipping manifest from the West Indies, October 29th. He's scared, but he'll talk. Finch pulled the brim of his hat lower and stepped into the maze of warehouses. The office of Dock 9 was little more than a shack nailed together from salvaged planks. The rain beat down like drumming fingers on the tin roof. Inside, Dockmaster Renly sat with a bottle of gin in one hand and a ledger in the other. He looked up as Finch entered. You're late. Finch raised an eyebrow. I'm never late. Renly chuckled without humor. You're not the first one sniffing around. A man came by yesterday. Clean coat, soft voice, hands like he never lifted a box in his life. Told me to forget the manifest ever existed. Did you? Renly slid a file across the table. Not exactly. Finch opened it. Dozens of entries, all under a false shipping company, East Sea Ventures. None of them recorded by customs. The contents, marked in code. I recognize some of this, Finch murmured. Elijah had similar entries in his journal. Renly leaned in. Whatever this is, it's big. Too big for one detective. What were they moving? Artifacts, books. Some said cursed. Others locked in lead. One crate came with guards. Not sailors, soldiers. Finch looked up. Where is it now? Warehouse 14. But if you go there, go armed. Warehouse 14 was a cavernous structure at the river's edge. Its windows were black with grime. The only light came from Finch's lantern. He pushed the heavy door open. Dust swirled. Silence greeted him. And then, movement. Slipped behind a stack of crates. Finch drew his revolver. Show yourself. A click behind him. Drop it, Inspector. He turned slowly. The man from the prison corridor. The one with the too clean coat. Face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Mr. Black. I presume. The man smiled. You ask too many questions. Finch didn't lower the gun. And you give too few answers. You're meddling in affairs beyond your station. You framed my partner. Your partner was trespassing in a world that protects itself. He was warned. So was I. Black stepped closer. You should listen before your body is found floating beside the next tide. Finch cocked the hammer. Tell me what's in the crates. Evidence of a past better left buried. Before Black could raise his own weapon, a sound shattered the tension. A crashing crate from behind. Both men turned. Cora stood above, on a second-floor catwalk, pistol in hand. I vote we keep digging, she called. Black turned to flee. Finch fired. The shot grazed Black's arm, sending him spinning into the shadows. They gave chase. By the time they reached the docks, he was gone, a skiff untied, oars dripping. Finch cursed. "We had him, but now we know where he hides," Cora said, panting. "And we have this." She held up a fragment of a torn manifest from the crate. On it, an emblem, a crowned serpent. Finch recognized it. It matched the crest on Hale's sealed envelope. Everything was connecting, but faster than he could contain. "We need to move now," he said. "The trial starts in 2 days. If we don't present this, they'll hang Cross before sunrise." "Then let's burn the whole web," Cora replied. The wind howled through Limehouse, and for the first time in weeks, Finch smiled. The private club at 18 Marlowe Street had no name on the door, just a brass plaque with the number and a bell that chimed too softly for the chaos of London. It was the kind of place where carriages pulled up with curtains drawn and men stepped out without ever being seen. Alistair Finch adjusted his tie and stepped from the shadows across the street. Beside him, Cora wore a simple gray dress and carried a notebook tucked into a satchel. "You're sure this is the place?" he asked. Cora nodded. "The emblem from the manifest? It's carved into the fireplace inside. My source confirmed it. They call themselves the Order of the Black Feather, and they meet tonight." Finch exhaled slowly. "Then let's knock." They entered through the side, a servant's corridor disguised as a wine passage. Finch had bribed the footman earlier that afternoon. £2 and a promise. No names, no questions. Inside, the air was heavy with pipe smoke and whispers. Candles flickered along the walls. The room beyond was grand. Marble pillars, velvet chairs, dark mahogany shelves stacked with books no public library would ever carry. Cora crouched beside a vent grill that overlooked the gathering room. Finch joined her, careful not to be seen. Below, a dozen men sat in a half circle. Their faces were hidden behind masks of black feathers, each unique but all sharing the same cruel elegance. Some resembled ravens, others hawks. One, disturbingly, wore a beak gilded in silver. "The society convenes," intoned a man in the center, his voice low, resonant, theatrical. Finch leaned closer. "Our brother is dead. Lord Hale's tongue grew too loose." A murmur of agreement. "But the traitor remains alive, and he gathers allies." Another voice. "The detective Finch. He probes." "Then he too must be silenced." Cora touched Finch's arm. He didn't move. The man continued. "Our work cannot be exposed. The artifacts must be delivered to the university by year's end. The contents decoded." Another figure spoke, older, his voice rasping. "What of the prisoner? Let him hang. Justice by rope distracts from justice in shadows," Cora whispered. "We need to get out of here." Finch nodded. But as they turned, the vent grill creaked. Below, heads turned upward. There, Finch grabbed Cora's hand. They burst into the alley behind the club. Footsteps pounded behind them. Cora dropped her notebook in the scramble. "Leave it!" Finch shouted. They ducked through an open stable, vaulting barrels and crates. A riderless horse neighed in alarm. A gunshot cracked the night. Stone chipped near Finch's head. They sprinted down a narrow lane, slipping through the fog until they reached the safety of a carriage yard. Only then did they stop, breathless. "We were seen!" Cora gasped. "Yes," Finch said grimly. "But now we know." Back at Finch's flat, they sat in silence. "They're moving artifacts to a university," he said, "which means someone with power is laundering their presence." Cora opened her backup notes. The only institution with authority to process colonial artifacts without oversight is the Royal Institute of Historical Advancement. And guess who's on the board? She held up a name. Sir Godfrey Temple. Finch blinked. He was at Hale's funeral. He funded the East Sea Ventures expedition, the one tied to the shipments. "He's our link." Finch rose, pacing. We take this to the Crown, we're ignored. We take it to the courts, we're blocked. So we go to the press. Cora shook her head. Not yet. One wrong move, and they bury us both. We need proof of intent. Documents, signatures, confessions. Finch looked out at the fog. Then we go into their archives. Cora raised an eyebrow. How do we get in? Finch turned, eyes sharp. We steal them. The wind over Whitehall, cut like a knife. Finch stood across from the Royal Institute of Historical Advancement, its imposing columns towering in the fog. Behind those walls, in archives close to the public, were the records they needed. Shipping manifests, funding approvals, names with signatures, a trail of ink that could expose everything. Beside him, Cora pulled her scarf tighter. Are you sure your contact will come? Finch checked his pocket watch. If he doesn't, we're already dead. The contact was Sergeant Alfred Pike, a veteran officer at Scotland Yard. Trusted, loyal, or so Finch had thought. Until recently, Pike had gone quiet after Elijah's arrest. Avoided questions. Dismissed inconsistencies. Finch had once believed Pike was just frightened. Now, he wasn't so sure. A shadow approached through the fog. Pike, overcoat buttoned, hat low. You're late, Finch said. Pike's eyes darted. I shouldn't be here. But you are. Pike hesitated, then handed over a folded sheet. This is a floor plan. The West Archive has a hidden compartment. I saw them move a crate there last week. Heavy, guarded. And why tell me this now? Pike exhaled. Because I owe Cross my life. You know that. But if they find out I talked to you, they won't. Pike nodded. Be quick. And don't come back. That night, under cover of a citywide blackout test, Finch and Cora slipped into the Royal Institute through a rear entrance. Inside, the halls were quiet as tombs. Footsteps echoed like gunshots. They reached the archive door, locked. Finch picked the mechanism, whispering, "Count to 10. Cora raised a brow. Since when do you pick locks? Since they started framing my friends. Click. They slipped inside. Rows of shelves stretched into darkness. Finch found the crate Pike had described. Inside, ledgers, old journals, wax-sealed documents. Cora flipped open a leather-bound ledger. Here, this proves Sir Godfrey Tapple authorized shipment of cultural artifacts under falsified titles. And here, he authorized funds through East Sea Ventures. Finch found a letter bearing the black feather insignia, signed Temple. We take these to a judge, Cora whispered. A clean one. Then, footsteps. They froze. A light flicked on. Sergeant Pike stood in the doorway, gun drawn. I told you not to come back. Finch stepped forward. You gave me the map. Pike's voice cracked. Because I thought you'd see sense. I wanted you to stop. But you didn't. And now they know. Finch's voice was low. You're with them. They own everything. The courts, the press, the bloody yard. What was I supposed to do? Fight alone? No, you were supposed to stand for something, like Cross did. Pike hesitated. His gun shook. Then a shot. But not from Pike. Cora had fired. The bullet struck the lamp above, shattering it. Darkness, confusion. Finch tackled Pike. The gun skittered across the marble. Go, Finch shouted. Cora grabbed the ledgers. They ran. Outside, they didn't stop running until they reached the river. Cora doubled over, panting. He would have shot us. He was already lost, Finch said, breathless. She looked at him. So what now? He held up the documents. Now we bring them to the one man they don't control. And who's that? Finch's eyes were hard. The judge who owes me a life. The halls of the Old Bailey echoed with heavy silence. A fog, thicker than soot, pressed against the windows. And inside, the court prepared for what was being called a routine military tribunal. No press, no gallery, no justice. Elijah Cross sat in the defendant's box, his hands shackled, expression unreadable. A single guard stood nearby, not for his safety, only to ensure he didn't speak unless spoken to. From a shadowed corner, Alistair Finch watched. The documents Cora had gathered from the Institute were secured in a leather case beneath his coat. The only question left was, would the judge be brave enough to hear them? He didn't have to wonder long. The judge took his seat. Lord Percival Wakefield, an old man with a long memory and a reputation for blunt decisions. Finch had saved his granddaughter from an abduction 4 years earlier. Now it was time to call in that debt. Finch stepped forward. Your Honor, before this court proceeds, I request a moment in chambers. Urgent evidence has surfaced. The prosecutor, a slick man in a silk cravat, scoffed. This man is not counsel. But Wakefield raised a hand. Mr. Finch has the floor. A murmur passed through the guards. Wakefield stood. Clear the court. In chambers, Finch laid the documents on the table. Ledgers, letters, maps. These connect Sir Godfrey Temple, the East Sea Ventures smuggling operation, the Order of the Black Feather, and the late Lord Hale. The murder was staged. Elijah Cross was framed for investigating what others wanted buried. Wakefield read in silence. His eyes moved slowly, methodically. How many know of this? Myself, Miss Delling, and now you. Wakefield nodded. You're lucky I have no love for Sir Godfrey or his politics. Finch exhaled. I'll delay the sentencing, Wakefield said. Give you a public hearing. But after that, you're on your own, and you'll need more than paper to win. Finch nodded. We'll find it. Outside the chambers, the court returned to session. Cross was led back into place. Wakefield's gavel struck. Due to new material evidence, the matter of Crown versus Cross is hereby suspended. A public hearing will be scheduled within 3 days. The defendant is to be remanded in protective custody. The gasps echoed through the chamber. Finch caught Elijah's eye. For the first time in weeks, there was hope. That night, Finch met Cora atop the roof of her Fleet Street office. The city spread below them. Silent, glistening, watching. 3 days, he said. She handed him a flask. That's either just enough or not nearly enough. He drank. We need a witness. A real one. Someone from inside the society. You thinking of Mr. Black? He won't talk. Not unless he has more to fear from us than from them. Cora leaned forward. Then we find someone who's already afraid. Someone who's seen what they do and wants out. Finch looked toward the rising fog. Let's shake the tree and see who falls. 2 nights before the public hearing, Fleet Street was nearly silent. The presses paused. The typewriters still. Cora Delling sat alone in her office, staring at a drawer she hadn't opened in years. Her hands trembled as she slid the key into the lock. Inside, wrapped in yellowed newspaper, was a letter, the seal broken long ago. The signature at the bottom, Elijah Cross. She read it again, though she knew every word by heart. Cora, if they come for me, if I vanish, if I'm silenced, know that it was never about just one case. It's deeper, it's personal, and it goes back to that night in Georgia. She folded the letter carefully, eyes glassy. The knock at the door startled her. Finch stepped in. You all right? She nodded. Just old ghosts. He hesitated. You've been quiet since the archives. Cora took a breath. It's time I told you something. About me. About Elijah. 5 years earlier, Savannah, Georgia. Cora had been there as a foreign correspondent, chasing rumors of corruption in Reconstruction-era courts. That's where she met Elijah. Not as a detective, but as a fugitive. He was investigating a lynching the local authorities had called an accident. He saved her life when men in gray coats tried to silence her. They shared a safe house, shared stories, shared nights, and then he left, back to London, chasing the people behind it. He'd uncovered that the same network funding racial violence in the South had ties in Britain. Names like Temple, like Hale. He wrote her only once, and that letter now lay trembling in her hand. Back in the present, Finch sat across from her, stunned. "You knew all this?" "I didn't want to cloud the story. I thought I could help more by staying out of it, but I was wrong." Finch rubbed his eyes. "You're not just helping. You're the missing piece." Cora nodded. "We need someone from the inside, right? Someone scared, someone with motive. I know just the person." "Who?" "Judith Penderley. The daughter of Lord Penderley? He was one of the society's inner circle, and she hated everything he stood for. She's written anonymous pieces before, condemning colonial violence. She'll talk." Finch stood. "Then we find her. Now." They found Judith at a women's shelter in Bloomsbury, disguised as a volunteer. Tall, pale, with tired but defiant eyes. At the name Cross, she stiffened. "He tried to warn my father, tried to save him. They killed him anyway." "Who is they?" Finch asked. "Temple, Radley, a man called Black, and others, masked." Cora stepped forward. "Will you testify?" Judith shook her head. "They'd kill me. They'll kill us all if you don't." A pause. Then, "Give me the stand. I'll speak, but only if you promise one thing." "Anything," Finch said. "Burn them. Burn the whole bloody lot." Back on Fleet Street, Finch poured a glass of scotch. "You realize what you did?" Cora nodded. Opened the final door. "And what's behind it?" She looked toward the dark skyline. War. London, December 1st, 1887. Snow fell on the steps of the High Court, soft as ash. A crowd had gathered, word spreading through London like wildfire. The trial of Detective Elijah Cross had reopened, public this time. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, diplomats, merchants, mothers. Some came for justice, others for spectacle. Alistair Finch stood near the front bench, beside Cora and Judith Penderley. He'd hardly slept. Neither had Elijah, though he looked calm as ever in the dock, like a man who had faced death and decided not to blink. Judge Wakefield entered. A hush fell. This court recognizes new evidence and new witnesses in the matter of Cross versus the Crown. Let the truth be told. The prosecution opened with fire. Detective Cross was found at the scene of Lord Hale's murder. He was in possession of the murder weapon. What more is needed? Motive, Finch whispered to himself. And the truth. Then it was the defense's turn. Finch approached the stand, documents in hand. The court has been told Elijah Cross killed Lord Hale, but no one asked why Hale was targeted or what he was hiding. He laid down the manifest, the letters, the shipping orders. These documents prove Hale was involved in a covert operation, funneling cultural artifacts through private docks under false pretenses, tied to a group known as the Order of the Black Feather. Cross was investigating them. Hale was killed to protect them. Murmurs rose. "And the murder weapon?" the prosecutor demanded. Cora stepped forward. "The blade was planted. I reviewed the evidence logs. Cross's fingerprints weren't on the handle. There was no blood on his clothes. Forensics were rushed." "And who planted it?" the judge asked. "Ask Sir Godfrey Temple," Cora said. Gasps. The gallery erupted. Temple, red-faced in the back, stood abruptly. "This is slander!" "We call Judith Penderley to the stand," Finch said. Judith walked slowly, chin high. "My father was a member of the order. He believed in its cause. But even he feared what they were doing. When Elijah Cross tried to warn him, they silenced both men. My father with a blade, Cross with a noose." The judge leaned forward. "Do you swear this under penalty of perjury?" "I do." "Do you have proof?" She held up a journal. Her father's. Pages marked with symbols, names, payments. Wakefield opened it. His face hardened. For 2 more hours, evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The gallery turned, and then Elijah Cross was called to speak. He rose. The room held its breath. I didn't come to London to fight shadows. I came to help shine light. I won a badge on 2 continents. I've bled for the truth. But this was never justice. This was fear dressed in law. He looked to the judge. If you hang me, it won't be for murder. It'll be for looking in the wrong room with the right eyes. Judge Wakefield sat silent for a long time. Then, this court finds the defendant not guilty. Elijah Cross is hereby released. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate inquiry into the Order of the Black Feather and all names listed in these documents. Applause burst like thunder. Finch closed his eyes. Just for a moment. Outside, the snow had turned to sleet, but for the first time in weeks, it felt like it might stop. Cora stood beside Elijah as the press swarmed. "What now?" she asked him. Elijah looked up at the gray sky. "Now, we keep going." London, December 1887. The fog was back, curling through the streets like smoke from an unseen fire. But this fog felt different, lighter somehow, as if the city itself was breathing again. Elijah Cross walked through Whitechapel without a shadow trailing him for the first time in weeks. The weight of injustice had not vanished, but it had shifted. Now it pressed on other shoulders, those who once sat in smoke-filled rooms, faces hidden by masks of feathers. Some had fled. Others had been arrested. Sir Godfrey Temple was missing. Chief Inspector Radley had been suspended pending a tribunal. The Order of the Black Feather was no longer invisible, but the cost had been high. At Scotland Yard, Finch stood in the office they once shared. Elijah joined him, leaning against the old desk. "Think they'll give you your badge back?" Finch asked. Elijah smiled faintly. "Don't think I want it anymore. Not here." Finch nodded. "Going home?" "Not yet. Too much still broken. Too many people without a voice." "Then what will you do?" Elijah looked out the window. "Help fix what I can. Off the books." "You'll be hunted." "So are we. Didn't stop us." Finch extended a hand. Elijah took it. No words needed. Cora sat by the Fleet Street window, pen in hand, ink smudged on her fingers. Her headline read, "The Mask Beneath the Crown. Inside the secret society that nearly broke Britain." Below it, a quote, "Justice does not come when we ask politely. It comes when we demand it." She sealed the envelope, addressed it to every major newspaper in the empire. That evening, the three met at the docks, the same place it had begun. Rain threatened, but held off. Cora raised a flask. To truth, however muddy. Elijah took it. To the fallen. Finch added, to what comes next. They drank. Silence fell. The city behind them hummed. And then Elijah turned to walk into the fog. No badge, no chains. Just a man who'd survived the darkness and chose to walk back into it for others.